Cut it out, Bo. Go downstairs. Go. I'll be down in a minute.
You know how it is, like starting up. It's hard as shit.
Whether they're good, bad, or ugly, getting the message out there that people aren't just like these superstars or shitbags. Like, there's a point behind everybody, what they're doing. I'm a fucking moron. Mike.
Yeah. Welcome back to another episode, guys. With you as always, me, Ben. Today, I'm joined by Bryce. I hope I'm saying it right. Wygal?
Yep.
There we go. Of Silent Hero Cigar Company. Bryce is actually, we kind of linked up on Instagram, but this dude's a veteran-owned company. He is big supporter of a lot of things. We'll go into that, but his product seems pretty badass. Bryce, thank you for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. No, I'm glad we could figure out a time where where both worked out. So no, I appreciate that.
I learned that's about 70% of this job. Actually, it's not interviewing people; it's just finding the time you can sit down and talk for a while. So
yeah.
I'm glad we are able to do it. Bryce, we'll start it off. Just tell me about where you're from, where you came from, kind of a little bit about childhood and high school, and kind of just kind of that little snippet of life and where it led you to.
Sure. Yeah. So I originally grew up. I did a lot of my childhood in Baltimore City, right around the Dundalk area, and then throughout school, K through 12, I went over into Kent Island, which is actually, I think, like 45 minutes east of Baltimore. Could be wrong. It's been a little while, but went to school over there, and then in high school, yeah, I mean, I was the quiet kid, man. I was in sports. I played baseball, football. I even did 22 long rifle shooting at the 4-H club,
Nice.
and even did some sporting clays. And so, I mean, that was really where I was at in high school. Never really got into like the big party scene per se, but I just really didn't have it together. Like, my home life was kind of interesting. I had two parents that were rather different. So my mom, unfortunately, had substance abuse issues, and then, on the flip side, my dad, was fine. He didn't have any issues like that, but he had to, deal with someone that did.
Yeah. Was he like was he sorry, was he kind of like just supporting her through it all and trying to make it work, or was it kind of a sight unseen type thing?
It was a little, yeah. I mean, you could definitely tell. I mean, even as a little kid, I mean, I could really tell that, he was doing his best to try to give her the support and the tools to really get a handle on, the things she was battling. But where at least from my, perspective, it was getting to be a bit much, to the point where, she was just making bad decisions to keep it light. And so he was really just, he was being dad. He was trying to look out for me and my older brother, and trying to keep us away from, one, going down that path, and then two, trying to not get hurt from, someone that is underneath of the influence of, one thing or the other.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was pretty quiet just because, my household, dynamic was a bit tumultuous. It was not, it wasn't ideal. And kind of got, was matured really quick. I got to see a lot of the grown up stuff that, kids probably shouldn't. Having police at my house and all kinds of just really, very dysfunctional environment.
All the stuff kids shouldn't see,
Yeah.
Like, to be fair. Damn. What
Yeah.
sorry, I was just this always interests me about people. So you said you were involved in sports, and you were the quiet type. do you think you kind of use those things as like your outlet to where you could go and focus on that, but you didn't really want to be involved with anyone else around you at the time? Or
Yeah, I mean, I really loved being. I mean, practice is practice. Don't get me wrong, but I really enjoyed being around my teammates. I made some good friends. Really enjoyed just being around those people, and then it was kind of that kind of that. Oh my goodness, like I got to go back. I got to go back into that environment. Um, and so dealing with that, throughout, really as far as I can remember through my whole 18 years I lived with my family. Then that's how I kind of got into the Army. I was at a little bit of a crossroad, geez, um, where I could try to go to school and like hammer it out. But again, like I didn't have the self-discipline. Again, when you're 18 years old, 19 years old, you feel like you have the world figured out. And of course I did not. And so,
no,
a
I heard,
shocker.
yeah, it sucks because you really think at that age, like sometimes you're like, no, this is gonna fix it all. I know what to do
Yeah.
now, man.
Yeah. And so I was trying the school route. Like I went to the community college, and just couldn't dedicate it. Like I just didn't have the self discipline to get myself to the class and like to give a shit and to actually like excel. Um, and then so I ended up. I didn't just stop going either. Like I got put on academic probation and everything.
Yeah,
And so at that point, it kind of left me with like, now what? You know what I mean? And I remember actually talking to my dad, and he was like, "Well, why don't you?" Because they had moved down to Florida after I got out of high school, and I decided to stay up in Maryland with my girlfriend, which is now my wife. Um, and they were like, "Well, you could always be a Florida Highway Patrol and come down and go to the academy for that, and you could live here and whatever." And then when you get on your feet, you can go get your own place, whatever. And it was kind of one of those like responses that I didn't really think about it. I just kind of said it, and I was like, even though I greatly respect that job, there's no way I'm going to go up to a traffic stop and have the cars, windows all limo tinted out, and I can't see if there's a gun or not.
yeah.
And I was just like, I'd rather be shot at from an open field. And that was kind of the, like, oh, that, at least that's a route. And then went to, go and seeing recruiters, and didn't just go to the Army. I went to Air Force, Coast Guard, um, even the Navy. Didn't go to the Marines. I don't necessarily know why, but I just didn't.
I I feel like with Marines, it usually seems like the guys going to the Marines, they know they want to go to the Marines. A lot of them,
Yeah.
and then all of us are like, what can we get? Like a lot of them, it's like uh, going to car dealerships, see what best deal you can get.
Yeah, and like, and my thing is too, like, I really wanted to see what made sense. I wanted to get into a career that, not saying that the Marines don't have it, but I wanted to get into a career that, could be applicable for civilian and military, like that I would enjoy both in a sense. Um, and then that's how I landed up as a 35 Sierra signals analyst.
That's a
Yeah,
pretty
and
good
then
job, actually. Like just coming into it, that's pretty solid.
yeah, it was. And what's really unfortunate is I obviously went in, did that, and then went to AIT, or my tech school, whatever you want to call it, did all the training, got stationed at Fort Meade, and then never did signals analysis a day that I was there. I actually did targeting.
Oh, okay. What?
Yeah.
Not necessarily a terrible job either, though, right? Or was it kind of boring to you, or not? It was just
It definitely wasn't boring.
Okay.
It
I was
was.
like, that sounds pretty badass to me.
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't boring. It was I don't know, it definitely wasn't what I not what I had signed up for, because that doesn't sound good either, but it's not what I had expected. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, when you put, like, I believe on my certificate for my signals analysis school, I think it's like a little over 700 hours on my certificate for like just being in the class. That's not extra tutoring or any of that crap. Um, and so when you put almost 1,000 hours into something, you're, at least for me, like I was like hell bent on being like, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing. I've got a decent understanding at a base level as to what this looks like. Let's do it. And
Yeah.
then to be told, yeah, you're not doing that, brother. You're doing this. It's like, all right, sick. I guess it is what it is.
Yeah. That's the hard part too. So I'm Seaburn, which, as
Okay.
you know, yeah, which, as you know, doesn't typically do their job 90% of the time. And I started learning in my career. It's like you can either like be really upset about that, because you learn a craft at a beginning, or you can embrace it at a certain point and go, well, they trust me at least to learn this new gig. I'm going to try
Yeah.
my hand at this and at least dive into it and not be a shitbag. That that's a long school though. Damn, like 1,000 hours basically to put into that job, and then you end up not. But where'd you end up at Mead, if you don't mind me asking?
So I ended up working as a NSA detachment.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So that was where I did all of my little over 3 years.
Yeah. Was that fun? You had fun there, or was it just meh?
Um, it was interesting. Um, I think the people that I worked with made it fun. The content of what we were doing, uh, that was the big reason why I got out. I just couldn't, my mental couldn't withstand doing that more than I already was doing. But no, like the people that I worked with made it really fun, and not, well, I guess not fun, but enjoyable. And then it was really interesting too to see like this military attachment that's in there coincide with like the civilian presence.
Yeah, because you're working hand in hand with them, so that's kind
Yeah,
of, yeah. It's a lot of like I guess they were either GS or
yeah.
like high up civilians in the Department of Defense, and then you're having to work all that through that. Was that did you find that a weird experience to like jump into that of like, you go to basic and AIT, it's very structured, and then you get there and it's like this isn't how we function here. This is a little different.
Yeah, and like I don't know, the pace of civilian, not that they don't do anything because that's not fair, but like the pace that things are done at is drastically different compared to like the military personnel. Um, like the military personnel, whether it's enlisted or officers, it's very quick, just like everything else. And if you're waiting on something for, from like your civilian detachment or, whatever you want to call it, um, it kind of like, pains your side a little bit because you're like, damn, like move, like, like I need this now, like not, not after lunch, not, 45 minutes later, I need it now. And I think that was the thing that I had to really adjust to, especially coming out of like basic and AIT, where everything, you couldn't do it fast enough. And then I actually got pulled aside a couple times. Well, not a couple times, but uh, probably like two or three, and just being like, this is how it's a process, and it flows really well, but you just kind of have to get used to it. And I'm like, okay, like fair enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that it's frustrating because, like you said, you learn that flow, but it is something you can kind of develop into. What you get through that 3 years, you get to the point where you're like, I'm getting out. What made you get to that point of like not staying in? Did you have a plan of only doing your first term, or how did that work out?
Yeah, mine. So I was in there for a little over 3 years, and granted, the last year I was in there, we had COVID happen, and yeah, And so there was a lot of like different dynamics with that too that was kind of pushing me out. And then the big one again, like the stuff that we were watching and doing every single day, it's just kind of one of those things where it starts kind of deteriorating pieces of your mental health. Um, and I just kind of started noticing it. But like when I would look at my wife would be like, "Dude, I've been with you since I was 17," and she was like, "You look terrible." And she's like, "You're doing things that are strange. Like, why are you looking over your shoulder constantly?" And just like little things like that. And that was a really big reason why I decided to get out. Like I said, I think by like a year and a half or 2 years, I had already kind of made up my mind like this isn't something that I'm going to be able to continue doing, even if I am a civilian or not. Um, and then I decided to start pursuing my bachelor's degree while I was in there. And the downtime that I did have, that's what I was doing. I was working towards my accounting degree, and was
Nice.
like, I'm gonna just completely shift gears here and go into something that isn't as heavy. And when I'm done, say like in my day job, I can come home and be like relax and like decompress essentially and not have to worry about anything more being added into negative memories or things like that.
What what made you get into accounting? Because I only it's not a bad thing or anything. I hate math personally, but
Mm.
I also I got a history degree, and I know a lot of people can't stand that type of stuff. So I'm always curious to see what led you down that road, because that's a very solid career path to choose as well.
Yeah, and so like in high school, and to kind of backtrack, I did a lot of their business program, or like their core pathway, if you will. So I did a lot of like, I mean, that program was actually pretty cool. Like you could get marketing, accounting, like understanding business finance at like a very basic level. And so from high school, that was actually the only class that like I actually really excelled in and really enjoyed was my accounting, introduction to accounting. And then I was like, well, if I enjoyed it in high school, let's try what it would look like in college. And so that's how I really got into that was actually from taking a few classes in high school and then started quickly realizing like I really enjoyed it. Like I like math. I think that's where the difference is. But at a certain point, my mind or my brain can't do it. You know what I mean? So like when you start getting me into like trig and all of that kind of stuff and calculus, like that's a little bit beyond. But like this simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, I'm obviously good at strong at those things. And then when you add just understanding assets, liability, depreciating assets, things like that. And I think ultimately too, I've always really wanted to run my own business, and so I understood that having a core understanding of accounting can drastically help with understanding how to structure the business, understanding what taxes will look like, with a C corp, S corp, LLC. Um, so it's kind of just trying to think more long term down the road, if that makes sense. And then understanding that if I, when I got out of the military and I had that degree, I could land myself in a pretty comfortable job where I could afford to buy a house and move or, do whatever it is I needed to do.
Yeah, and that's obviously, you seem like a pretty intelligent fellow, and you actually saw what a lot of people don't, is having that exit strategy of getting out. Because a lot of guys just jump out and they think it's so much. I am an avid proponent of telling people that you think the outside world's easier, and it's definitely not, because there's so much more shit personally you have to worry about than than you think, like
Yeah.
bills and just life in general. And it's 10 times easier to get fired, and the market, or job market competition, especially now, I'm sure you've seen from basically right after COVID to now, is insane. Like
Yeah.
they want 10 years of experience for an entry level job, that those type of things, or at a minimum a bachelor degree everywhere. And the fact that you saw that coming out early and decided to go with something that you were grasping and then dived into, that's good. What so what happens there? Did you finish your degree while you were in still?
No, I think I was short by maybe like 6 months, not even, or no, not 6 months, like 2 or 3 semesters really.
Yeah.
Um, and so I ended up actually getting like a part time job at this restaurant working in the back house operations. And the owner actually showed me pretty much like the how to run a restaurant really. Like the supply chain, the marketing, the cutting checks, sitting there doing deals, negotiations. I mean, you really name it. I mean, the guy kind of blessed me a bit with giving me kind of like a good hand, but like really hands on too. Like the guy, took a prior enlisted pretty much off the street and let me order whatever was necessary for his restaurant and like didn't bat an eye. And he would just ask, what the price of like certain things were that were negotiable. And he just expected me to get the best price for it. And,
That, that's awesome.
so
That's
I was
cool
like,
as shit.
hey.
Yeah. Uh, he must have been pretty influential then, like a lot, like trusting you enough to really mentor you basically with your first like interactions in business, I would assume.
Yeah, he was really big into um like that dude when everybody like other restaurants around him obviously, especially being on like the East Coast, they have a really big seafood market. Maryland blue crab is like all the craze, and especially in the summertime. Um and he really showed me how to kind of stand out and to not just be 1 or 2 steps ahead but 4 or 5, and to try to almost predict things that were going to happen. And he was like, even though you might not get it right all the time, he was like, you'll find yourself in a better position if they go slightly different than what you had anticipated, because you still know how to move forward, while other people are just more reactionary while you're able to actually pivot.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, he was a really sweet guy too. I mean, and the dude didn't let anybody give me any bullshit. You know, I got called a paper boy one time because I was sitting there and essentially looking through old invoices because I was trying to compare numbers. And as long as the not like, for example, like if I'm doing pounds, and I'd say it's 270 a pound, like my brain will really capture that number, and I can go back and flip through it and then see what kind of trend that product is moving. Um, and so I'm sitting there and they were like, "Oh, did you bring your son to work, or is this your paper boy?" And he like, dude, he stopped what he was doing and he was like, "Get the fuck out." And I thought he was talking to me, and I like looked over at him and I was like, "All right, dude, I'm moving." And he's like, "You sit your ass down." He's like, "You get out." And he's like, "You're not going to disrespect him like that." He's like, "You can hop out. You can try again, later in the week." And
Yeah.
the dude was like stunned and just he was like, "All right, cool," and then just left. And
Good on that
then
guy for not allowing the disrespect for that. All you're trying to do is learn the job. I don't know why people gotta make stupid ass comments about it when like you don't even know them.
no, you know what I mean? It's like the first time I saw the guy, and it's like, bro, like, what are you talking about, man? It's like I'm just literally sitting here minding my business, literally pretty much in the corner, like just let me be, man.
Yeah.
But
Were you what after I guess kind of a little backtrack, but you get out, you jump into all this stuff, you're working on the degree, you're doing all this stuff. How's your wife dealing with all this?
Well, and to add all of that, my wife is actually pregnant at the time.
Oh man.
Yeah, and then so like, and I was having really bad nightmares. Like I wasn't sleeping too great, um, and I just like I had this like idea as to what I was trying to do, but like I didn't have like it's almost like there's like potholes in the road, like, and I have to fill them before I get to the next. And I was like, damn, like I don't know what the hell to do. And she is like, out of all the crazy things that we have done together, she is by far the most. With me, she's very solid. Like she doesn't. She can take a lot of the chaos and kind of sift through it and be like, "What did you think of this?" And it's not just a spouse. It's almost like your best friend, and you're able to actually like voice what is happening and move through the obstacle that's in front of you rather than trying to sit there and dwell on it. You know what I mean? Or you talk about the obstacle and say she's, like that's stressing me out. Like, I don't want to hear about that. She's very much of like, okay, well, if you're in it, I'm in it. So let's figure it out. Um, and yeah, like I said, we've done some crazy stuff. Like my son was born while we were still back in Maryland, and then we knew that we wanted to actually move out to Wyoming to get try to get like a little piece of land and live out in the country and get some quiet. Um, and we asked the doctor, like, or the pediatrician, like, how old does he have to be to safely travel with him? And they were like, oh, he needs to be at least 8 weeks. You could get away with doing it at 10, but he'll be fine at 8 weeks. And I shit you not, dude, at 8 weeks we packed him up in the car and packed everything we had into one car and moved across the country, 2,200
Hell
miles.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And like her and I have done it. Like we drove it before he was born, and it would take us like 2 days. We would just leg it. But with him, we were like, we'll just have to stop a little more. But like it was fine. It gave us an excuse to get out, stretch our legs. Obviously take care of him and let him see because I mean, obviously going from the East Coast all the way out to Wyoming, the scenery changes dramatically. And so he
Yeah, it's
really,
way
yeah, and he really enjoyed. I think we were in Iowa where they had a bunch of cornfields, and it was during like the summertime and everything, and it was booming. And he was loving that. I mean, granted, at 8 weeks, it's not like he's laughing and all that kind of stuff, but you could see his eyes like kind of tracking the corn and all of that.
yeah, it's
And
reactionary 'cause the visual cues and stuff, and that's awesome.
yeah, and so it was kind of one of those things where we saw that and we were like, okay, I think we're on the right track here. Like I think we're doing the right thing, and then got him out here, and dude, that dude loves it. Especially we bought a house on 5 acres, and so he gets to go outside and run around, and it is what it is. Like the neighbors we have are a couple acres away, and they're rather older people anyway. So I mean, you don't really have to worry about people tearing up through the dirt road or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I had before I was here, I was in Missouri,
Hmm.
and I actually lived in my hometown as I was doing my station there, and we bought 5 acres, and we have 4 kids, and
Hmm.
they just, I mean, tore that place apart in a good way. They would run around. I had stuff built for them, and they I truly believe kids prosper when there's open land, and don't give them a screen. Just go
Oh
outside and be
yeah,
like, hey,
just
go check this out, and they figure it out. Like there's something magical that happens, and I
oh
love
yeah.
it. I'm glad you got that going, man. That's great.
Yeah, he's and because I mean we've always really tried to reduce a lot of that screen time and stuff, especially where we live, man. Like go outside, like it is, especially like in the summer, fall, and arguably the spring. It's really beautiful outside. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
like, go out there and like enjoy that. Cause I mean, out here, the winter time, granted, he could still go out in the wintertime, and trust me, he does. But he's the only one enjoying that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're like, all right, buddy, we gotta go.
yeah, like this wind's cutting through 3 jackets here, buddy. You're like, I know you're cold, man. Like, I know you're cold.
Yeah, that's great. I love hearing that about people because so many people they want to go where either the money is or their career works, and I'm like, I'd rather my family thrive than my career. Honestly, like I would, and it seems like you kind of have both going on there. What when you got out there, what did you end up doing?
Yeah, so I mean, and to kind of to your point, I mean, my wife and I had the mentality of like I have a degree that is applicable in any state. Yeah, every business needs an accountant, and every state, entity, needs accountants. Um, and so when we moved out to Wyoming, I think I had like a month and a half left on my degree, and I was applying for jobs, hoping that I could at least get like some kind of like face to face, whether it be virtual or whatever, and just kind of explain the situation. Like, I'm a month and a half out. Like, can we make the job contingent on the degree and me finishing the degree, or like, like what can I do to ease that, because I'm going to have it, but I would like to work. And there was actually a construction company down here in Cheyenne, that actually was like, yeah, like that's fine. And they took me on, and I was an accountant for, well, I was a payroll accountant and accounts payable accountant for about 6, almost 7 months, and learned really quick, like, dude, those work hours, man, like there is none. Like, you're going to work from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. if that's what's needed. And there's no overtime. You're just, that's it. But that's the expectation. Um,
Yeah.
and so coming home late, I got a very small baby at that point, and I got a wife that has never, dude, she had never left her parents until that move. And
Oh
so,
man.
oh yeah, so she was pretty homesick, and yeah, and I'm coming home, and like again, like I'm not sleeping good, and and I'm burnt from the day, and and I'm just smoked. And so I just was like constantly like just getting overworked, um, not from them, but like overworked mentally from it. And
Yeah.
and then I left there and actually started working at Magpul. And yeah, so I was a purchasing agent, or I guess a buyer rather, for their plastic injection molding program over there, which is about like 80% of their spend as a company. Did that for about 2 years, and then transitioned back into accounting with the state, and that's where I am now. And I'd much rather be at the state.
Yeah, yeah. Was Mac it was just busy as hell and just chaos
um,
or just a
yeah,
lot.
it was a lot, and then and since Magpul is always innovating, they're always doing their thing. I mean, that's the company. And so you're having these legacy products that are a big bulk of their portfolio, but then on top of that, you have these new products that are coming out, and so you have to kind of manage both and juggle both. And um, anybody that's ever worked supply chain will tell you that shit is always going wrong in supply chain, like always, always. Like if you're doing CNC machining and stuff like that, those tools break. Like, and it's not like the tool that is kind of like, like that's fine, like we'll get it fixed and it's fine. No, it's the tool that like makes the PMAG, and it's like, bro, like, like, come on, man. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and and so a little bit of mixture of that, and then I'm also this fall I'll have my master's degree in financial management, and so I was kind of poking at them, kind of trying to plant the seed of like being like, okay, well, I'm going to have my master's degree in financial management. Like, as far as Magpool is concerned, like, what can I do with that degree? And they were like, well, we can, kind of step you up to a senior buyer if that's what you would like to do. Um, and it was kind of that point for me where it was like, like, do I want to do this as a career, or do I want to just stop and go back into, maybe the state, and then, see what the state might have to offer for getting like advanced degrees and stuff like that. And um, the benefits at the state obviously were a lot better, especially with having a family, and then getting a degree, or at least a graduate degree, um, opens you up to a lot more doors over there than,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
It kind of sets you up for the career, right? With a master's, because you're going to be able to, I don't, this is a bad way to phrase it, but kind of ride that degree out, that you don't need any further training at that point
Yeah.
to continue your career and prosper.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. First of all, congratulations for keep going while you're doing all that, and you got or you're getting the master's degree now. You're at the state now. Tell me about the origins then of your cigar company. Because that's
Yeah.
what we're here
So,
about, man. That's what
so
give the people what they want.
so Silent Hero Cigar, that actually was something that I had been thinking about since I was in the service. The Instagram account that I currently have actually was a hobby account to begin with. Um, and then in that account, I had archived the pictures because I didn't want to delete them, but I still wanted to have them as kind of a memory. Um, when I was really kind of struggling with everything in the military, I bought some tobacco seeds, and I was like, you know what, like, my grandmother's side are all farmers. Like, I'm gonna try to grow one damn seed if it kills me. And so I bought like a whole pack of like little tiny tobacco plant seeds. I think it was like a habano, like some kind of strand of habano. Um, and then they actually started sprouting, and I was like, holy shit, like this is awesome. And I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, because I don't know how to roll this shit, but this is cool. Like, one step at a time here. And needless to say, I got a little too excited, and I was like, dude, like, I need to get them in the sun, and completely nuked them because it was too extreme of a difference. And
Oh,
so,
okay.
yeah, it like completely shriveled them up and just killed the plant. And I was like, dang, like, all right, like, I want to do the cigar business, but let's kind of back burner that for a second. And then fast forward 2 years, came out to Wyoming and was like, told my wife, I was like, hey, I'm gonna actually grab. It's a really nice day out. Like, I'm gonna grab a cup of coffee. I'm gonna grab. I think it was a Rojas Statement, and which is I don't know if he's still small, but it was a smaller cigar company.
Okay.
Um, and really phenomenal sticks if you've never had them. Like, very good stuff. Um, and people really rant and rave about his street tacos, which is great. But nevertheless, not talking about him. Um, Go out there and cut up the cigar and light the shit. And it was kind of that light bulb moment. Like, I wanted to do that. Like, I wanted to smoke, like, have my own cigars and have my own cigar company. And um, I remember looking at my wife, and I was like, I want to do a cigar company. And she just kind of like looked at me, and she's like, well, what does that entail? And I was like, I don't really know, but I was like, I'm gonna find out. Like, this is what it's like picking at me. Like, now that I thought, like, it's come back, it's like one of those constant thoughts. And she's like, okay, well, like, just do your research, be smart about it. Like, let's talk it through. Let's not just go crazy. And so after probably about like a year and a half of sitting there at night, kind of utilizing the insomnia a bit, and going on my phone and just kind of reading everything I possibly could and trying to find different suppliers, different manufacturers, different places to find office supplies, packing materials, label printers, everything. I finally was able to kind of get a good rough number as to what I was looking at starting the cigar company. And it's like a damn business meeting. Like I got my wife in the living room and I'm like, look, listen, and I got everything kind of laid out. And I'm like, I'm not trying to sell you here, but I was like, I think it's possible. And so I'm going, like, telling her about it. And I'm like I found, a manufacturer that can, that they said that they'll get me some samples and we can work through the blends. We can try it all out and, we can go from there. I was like, and this is the step-by-step process and how much it's going to cost for the business. And just kind of really, just really went head to toe as much as I could. And I'll be very honest, it cost me little over $10,000 to start a cigar company. Me personally, dude, that was like almost all of my savings. Like I put all my chips on me, and and I was like, and of course when you start doing that, and when the high wears off of like this is cool, and so I'm sitting there and I'm like looking at it and I'm like, man, this is going to be tricky. And so we're sitting there and I remember during that same conversation that night, and she's like, well, what's the name of the company? And I was like, what do you mean? Kind of like stunned by the question. And
of all the things, you're like, what?
out of all the information I provided and gathered, that it was like the most obvious question. And she's like, what about the name of the company? What is it going to be? And I just kind of sat there for a minute and I was like, that's a good question. I was like, why didn't I think of that? And she's like, kind of just smiled. And she's like, I think what you've done is excellent. But she was like, we need to think about a good name. And she's like, also, have you thought of the competition? And I was like, well, yeah, I have seen that. I was like, it's going to be stiff. I was like, you got a lot of great cigars and a lot of other small companies. And she was like, okay. She's like, well, think about it. And so I'm kind of sitting there chewing on it and chewing on it and chewing on it. And then Silent Hero Cigar, where I actually got that from is, so my old unit was called Silent Warrior. And so to kind of pay homage back to my old unit, I took the silent but left the warrior piece off and put hero. And just because, our first responders, our, military personnel and veterans, are heroes, at least, in my eyes. Right. And so it was a way to pay homage to them and, to people like yourself and myself and, for, our brothers and sisters that have also passed away. And the other caveat to the hero part is the consumer. The hero aspect is when you take our 10% donation that we throw into not-for-profits that help veterans with PTSD, whether it be service dogs or any of that kind of stuff. That consumer is a silent hero into that veteran's path of recovery or healing or whatever you want to call it. And so it's kind of that silent donor, if you will. So it's more of building not just a cigar brand, but almost just building a family, a people of supporters that, they're not just my consumer or my customer and I don't know them. No, they're a part of the Silent Hero cigar business because our mission is directly involved with the customer. And without the customer, it's not the matter that the business won't work, but it's a matter that our, people that need the help the most, or some of the people that need the help the most, can't get the help, or at least have one extra step to get the help. So, I mean, that's really where the name comes from and really how how that all kind of came about. I mean, I know that sounds very chaotic because, um,
Sounds like starting a business.
yeah. And so it's just, I wanted to kind of create something that, obviously the cigars, they stand out, they speak for themselves. But, the business as a whole, I wanted that to be something to the point where, you know, we're able to participate in the community and to be able to actually have a hand back in the community and um, be able to show people that there is a light at the tunnel no matter how dark it is. You know, although you might run into some people that are kind of shitty, not veterans, but just people in general. Um, it doesn't mean that you're alone. I mean, I know a lot of veterans, especially myself, coming out of the military and going into the civilian, side of things. Like you had touched on, one of the challenges is, you don't feel like you fit in. You don't feel like you really belong. Even I still even struggle with that to this day. I mean, granted, I have a service dog, but it's when you have a service dog, this isn't Marley and me. Like people aren't like, oh my God, and they're giving you hugs. No, like,
It's kind of
they're
a
looking
silo,
at you.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're looking at you as like almost like, you're a piece of shit. Like, why is there a dog in this restaurant? And it's like, well, to me or the handler, it's like that's not my dog. That's my medical device and my best friend.
Yeah.
And so like that aspect, especially with like the service dogs, they're extremely helpful. But again, it makes it really stand out when people are like, you don't really fit well, let alone service dog. I mean, you have, the humor is very different in the military. Um,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? The
Oh yeah.
language is very different.
Yeah, it's especially on, you know, this this thing I've been noticing when I talk to people that aren't military or first responders really. There's a very big I don't know if it's a displacement or if it's just like I guess we just use different terms and everyone talks very blunt. Like you
Mhm.
describe how you feel, you describe not how you describe how you feel even because a lot of guys are closed off. You describe past events in detail to where
Yeah,
it's either gruesome or it's violent or it's sad as hell, but it is real. And a lot of people don't like real. They don't like
yeah,
hearing these dark avenues or the struggles, which I don't know about you, but it's my favorite stories is like hearing that struggle because it shows that you got through something. So I get it, man. The I'm not out yet, but I totally understand how you could be viewed as different and it would be a struggle.
yeah. Because it's different. Yeah, like it's very different. But again, like for me, I think the thing that has helped me a ton with getting out, minus the cigar business aside, is just being around other groups of veterans or even people that aren't veterans, but they can um, show you support. And it's not conditional support either. It's just support through and through. But no, the cigar business as a whole has extremely helped me with post military service, and I think that's really what I'm trying to accomplish, is trying to help other veterans have an easier time, if that makes sense. An easier time with dealing with PTSD and the thing, TBIs, things that just make it that much more challenging, that you know make you stand out. You know what I mean? And they take away from your quality of life.
Yeah. I have two things I think I want to cover from what you were talking about. One, this is more on the lighter side, but the business startup, right? Where you talked
Mhm.
about 10 grand and it's your savings and you're diving into it and you find it's this big endeavor and you um you're putting everything on it and you have a family support. It's a lot. I'm finding myself, actually, it's funny that you mentioned, I'm finding myself in the same boat where I just it'll come out, your episode, it'll be a little later. So, but I invested in, hats, t-shirts, all the merchandise stuff that you do for like a social media outlet and a program.
Right.
And my wife was, God bless her soul, she supported me through it all, and she's like, you should get these. And I'm like, well, what if they don't sell? And she's
Yeah.
like, man, you can't think like that. You gotta go after it. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, you gotta. So I understand, man. It's so terrifying um doing that, but part of you is like, I want to challenge myself. I know I can create something that's quality. I want to do this shit. So
Yeah.
I totally feel that on you. And then the stuff you're talking about with, the 10%, which is awesome. 10% goes to support veterans and stuff. And then, but I phrased it here as supporters supporting, right? So
Yeah.
the people that love your mission are also working on your mission with you to provide that help towards veterans and first responders stuff. And I think that's noble. What where do you see yourself going from here? Well, first of all, how long has it been since you started? Where are you at now, and where do you see yourself going?
Um, yeah. So I started about 9 months ago,
Mhm.
um, and it's surpassed all of my wildest expectations. And at 9 months, I'm in almost 20 shops. You know, Social media in itself has completely shown Silent Hero Cigar a lot of love, which I thought it would take a little bit longer, just because again it's a brand new cigar company. There's a lot of cigar companies um, that are. And when I say a lot of cigar companies, a lot of people when they hear cigars, they think of their more legacy stuff. Where it's Arturo Fuente, Davidoff, Ashton, whatever it may be. Um, but people that once you kind of start to dig a little bit, I would call that more of a surface. But once you kind of dig into a little bit more, just a tad bit more, you'll uncover that shell of holy shit. There is a ton of people that are trying to just have their own cigar, and that's okay. They have their own blends, they have their own thing, they have their own branding and marketing. It's really cool. At least I think so. I mean, I love it. I love seeing people's creativity with different things. Um, but with that, you're just you're trying to understand how to go forward. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, well, this is picking up pretty good. I'm doing pretty well. I'm in a lot of shops. At least in my opinion, I'm in a pretty good amount of shops.
20
I've got
sounds good to me. Yeah,
yeah,
for 9 months.
and and most of these shops they have most of them have one of each of my core lines. So they have 5 boxes at least. Um, and so and then all of that really surpassed my expectations. And then thinking about the new cigars and stuff like that I want to do. I just got done my sixth cigar that'll come out on June 5th. Um, I'm again like I can't believe that underneath of a year I was able to finish a sixth cigar, and there was a market and a demand from my company to keep progressing. Um, and then really the impact that we've had with the community has been like, it just completely like blows my mind. Within the first 6 months, we were able to donate over $2,000 and to, other small not-for-profits that help veterans with, service dogs, or there's a guy that does American Warrior Outdoors over in New Jersey. That guy does, fishing trips, hunting trips, camping trips, like more morale boost type stuff.
Yeah.
And his is pretty cool. Like his has, if he was here, he'd correct me, or maybe not. But hopefully not. Hopefully I get it right. But everyone that goes there is either a veteran or a first responder that suffers with PTSD. So it's a group of like-minded individuals that can have camaraderie and feel kind of back in that environment again without the uniform. Um, and then, last Christmas, I mean, we ran a holiday raffle from November 1st to December 21st, and we raised up, a little over $3,000 and fed 70 homeless veterans in Cheyenne. So
Awesome, man.
it's, you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
it's been a completely humbling experience. And really where I see it going, I keep seeing it growing. I'm optimistic that I'll keep being able to, I don't know, just keep being genuine, keep being true, and getting out into the community and just being like, hey, here's a cigar. This is new, blah blah blah, or this is what we're doing. And just keep moving forward and you know almost just try to enjoy the growth and not get hung up on the destination. You know what I mean? And just be present in the moment. Um, and yeah, I mean, and I'd love to be able to see, the amount of shops that we're in continuously grow. I mean, I believe it's about anywhere from 2 to 6 shops a month that we've been able to get in, pretty consistently. I mean, I know that's a pretty big range, but
No, I mean
uh,
that's progress every month. So I mean,
yeah, I mean, hell, even if it's one, like I'm cool. Like, just kind of the baby steps, laying it brick by brick, and again, just trying to um, not be so hyper focused on the destination, but being able to be present and just enjoy, the grind and the legwork of it all, and again, just I'm huge at being present, especially on social media. People that message my business account. Um, I get back to them personally. I mean, I've gotten on the phone with a good amount of people from all over the country, and so it's been super cool, man. I mean, like I said, it surpassed every expectation, and um, yeah, I've been so pleased with it all. And again, just being able to meet great people like yourself, and the people that have supported Silent Hero up until this point. It's just been I can't thank everyone enough, honestly.
yeah, I love to see where this is going because it's not only obviously I am a big proponent of veteran businesses. I love to see people actually uh, prosper when they get out,
Yeah,
but especially I don't. It's not that I don't love hearing the 20 plus whatevers, but I love hearing first and second termers get out and make something of themselves, and that's what you did, and that's what you're doing. So it always pumps me up, and then I can't wait to see where this thing goes because it's like you said, 9 months and you're already in 20 stores. You got 5 cigars out. You got a sixth one coming out. You said, I believe in June.
yeah.
I mean, and the amount of support you're giving to veterans, including myself. Actually, you even talked to me about um, you're kind of supporting my unit
Mm,
with the stuff, and all that stuff is so important with the veteran community, and I think a lot of companies right now talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. And you're
yeah.
doing that, and it shows. So thank you for all of this, man. It means the world. Coming from the inside, we love seeing it, and we love to support it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and and I never understood that. You know what I mean? It's like, and I guess to give some backstory as to like, the I guess the thought process is to like the donating and all of that kind of stuff. When I got out in 2021, and I was diagnosed with PTSD, and a couple other really not great things, and my family, they, like, for lack of better words, dude, I got kicked to the curb. Like, I got declined phone calls. I got, blocked by my own mom. Like, you know what I mean. And so you're just constantly getting like a little bit of a jab in the side, and And for me, my side was blackened and bruised, man. Like I was done with the beatings, you know what I mean? And, I couldn't handle much more. And so for me, having that kind of unfortunate dynamic with my family, um, that was the part where I was like, man, like I felt alone for so many years. And the only person I felt comfortable with was my wife. But like at the time, not even at the time, but like, it's hard to try to keep conveying something to them when, you know, I don't expect everybody to understand, but like, with my wife in particular, I think she could tell how bad it was eating at me. And like, I just couldn't escape. Like, it wasn't like I could play video games and it would be present. Like I could go outside and go for a walk, be present. Like it would just constant. And I remember telling her many, many nights, like, I feel so alone. Like, I can't call my mom, I can't call my dad, or like really anyone that's living on my side of the family, because they just don't want to hear it. And that's where that really stems from. Because I was like, fuck that. Like, if I'm here, like, and I'm still breathing, like, dude, like, if I'm running a business, I'm giving back so somebody can have a, because I know like that there's no way that I'm the only one that has had that situation. Like, there's no way. So it's like if I can give back to that community, and even if I don't know who it helped, how it helped, I don't really give a shit, but it helped. And and that's what I want. I want to make sure that if I can make one less person have that feeling of like, holy shit, like, dude, I'm sucking, like I'm by myself, like I'm down bad. um if I can just reduce that by one, this business is a success. I've told plenty of people, especially like my father-in-law. My father-in-law kind of hit me with the question of like, well, what is Silent Hero Cigar like successful? What does that look like to you, like in your mind? And I was like, what that looks like to me is taking 22 a day down to 21, and understanding that even if I don't, like it's not, whatever, like I don't even know how you would phrase that, like the point of the finger and say like, oh, well, that company helped, or you know what I mean? Like, I don't need any of that, but just see that go down, and to understand that from the get go, my business was donating money back into, trying to help fight that fight, and that number is reduced. Dude, that's a success, man. Like, that's a success. It doesn't matter how much is in the bank account. Like, doesn't matter any of that. How many cigars are being sold? It matters is to the point of veteran life. If we can keep 7 a week, that's, dude, I'm cool. I love it. Because, at that point, to me, it's like a snowball. If you start having 7 that stay, that's 7 more people that can actually turn that around and might actually be able to help in a different way, or, whatever that their, I don't know, trajectory for life may be, that would have otherwise been been tragic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, dude. I had I started this about 2023, right? 2023, about 2 years ago, right about now. And um I did a couple episodes here and there, but I was at drill, so it really didn't work out too well. Like, I was spacey about it, and I didn't. And about a year in, I had a soldier message me, one of my prior that I trained in AIT, and then he was like, I was thinking about a lot of bad thoughts. I just want to let you know, um, your show really helped me get through a lot of these dark times. And that enough was literally like, I'm never going to stop doing this. Like, I will not, unless something tragic happens, I will never stop doing this. Because if I can at least reach people about that, with whether it's about anxiety, depression, suicidal attempt, which for some reason I have a lot of people on here that talk about it, but it's like it's because it's common and it doesn't get it does get a lot of recognition. I think now I think the voices are out there. I think people just look for the outlet, and maybe it's not maybe it's not the Joe Rogan or whatever, but then again, like with you, maybe it's not Arturo Fuente and shit like that. It's something that people want to support. They want to find a bigger purpose behind. And that's what I think we're both trying to go for. So I feel you completely on that mission.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's awesome, man. I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah, that
That
was that's my crowning achievement. I've
yeah.
had a couple people say, about stuff, but that one really, really, really stuck with me. I love that. Where, so you got 20 stores nationwide. Um, and then can you also purchase I think I looked this up. I want to get it to the viewers though. You can also purchase everything online, right? Like all your five and everything and packs and stuff.
Yep. And then so you can purchase pretty much anything, obviously everything that we sell on silentherocigar.com. Yeah, we have a little bit of t-shirts left from the last run that we did last fall, I want to say. We have a little bit of t-shirts left. We have stickers, patches, and obviously cigars. Like I said, June 5th, the new cigar will actually be on there for purchase. I'm going to do a limited run on those cigars and just really see how they do. And if it's something that sells out, immediately, you know, we'll bring it back. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of, I wanted to see what kind of, the envelope I could really push. Like all of my cigars, I mean, hell, even down to the name of the cigar is just different. Um, like my Connecticut is not a normal Connecticut. My Connecticut is an Ecuadorian Connecticut with Nicaraguan filler. So it's going to be a lot more, I don't know, flavorful and a little bit more robust than a typical Connecticut will be. Typically, Connecticut's are a little bit, I won't say flavorless because that's not true nor fair, but they're a little bit more tame. You know, and then as you kind of start to step up like habanos and maduros and everything like that, the flavor gets a little bit more strong and all that kind of good stuff. Generally, that's a little bit of a generalization, but still, you get the point. And then we have a Candela too. Candelas are one of the most challenging and then one of the most hated cigars, or like one of the most hated blends of cigars currently. And
Why is that?
um, it's a
I
lot
don't
of
know. I don't know cigars very well.
oh
Like I'm
oh
a yeah. I'm
oh.
a
I'm sorry.
yeah. I had my phase of cigarettes and I use pouches now and dip, but
Hmm.
like I've never really been a cigar guy, so I was always curious about that. Like these profiles you're talking about, like I guess the tobacco is one part of the profile, but there's also the actual leaf covering it, and I guess there's a couple elements to it that you're talking about. Like I was intrigued though. I'm like, this is cool as shit. Yeah.
Well, I didn't want to get like but essentially, with a cigar, so you have your filler, which is going to be obviously the filler. That's going to be 80% of your cigar, and then you have the binder, and then you have the wrapper. The wrapper is what you see on the outside. It's the prettiest leaf out of all of
Oh,
them.
but it's not the binder.
No, no.
Okay.
So the wrapper can be, hell, it can be anything. It can be Connecticut broadleaf. It could be Connecticut. It can be Brazilian, Trinidad, whatever it may be. Um,
And it's a
but
leaf. Is it a tobacco leaf or is it just a leaf?
no, it's a whole tobacco leaf
Okay.
typically, and
Okay.
then they kind of trim it depending on the size and all that kind of good stuff. And then they have like Viso, Seiko, Ligero, all that kind of stuff contributes to like the strength, the burn, the smoke. You kind of have to play. That's where blending kind of comes in, where you have to play with the ratios of all three of those because, like for example, like Ligero is the strength. So if you packed a cigar full of Ligero, the burn isn't going to be right. Typically,
Okay. So it's got to have that. It's got to have certain blends to it to make it work right.
yeah. So you can get away with taking some out. Like not all of my blends have Ligero because it just isn't needed. Like the Candela is a Indonesian binder and wrapper with a Nicaraguan filler, but there's no Ligero in that cigar.
Okay.
So it's mainly comprised of Seiko and Viso.
Which is the Seiko and Visa you said is the smoke and the what else?
The smoke and the combustion.
The combustion. Okay.
And so people that
So
light up,
it burns real good and it smokes real good.
oh yeah, it throws a lot of smoke.
Yeah. That's badass though. It looks cool.
Yeah. And a lot of people that have reviewed that cigar, that's one of the notable things that they point out is how smoky the cigar really is. And then as you kind of start to work up with the cigars, that's, at least my 5-pack, from left to right, the Candela is going to be your most mild. And then the Connecticut, the Ecuadorian Connecticut is going to be a good step up. Like it's going to kind of show you what it's going to be to have a little bit more body to it, but not to the point where it's not palatable as a Connecticut. And then I have 2 Habanos. One's a box press, and then the other one is just a regular 5x50 Robusto. And essentially, the Habanos they're a little bit of a different tape. So if you like a Habano, aka a habanero, is the nickname for those, by the way. And because they're typically very spicy, they're very peppery and all of that kind of stuff. And if you don't like that, like if you don't like a lot of pepper and you don't like a lot of that, habanero taste to it, not that they all have it, but you get the idea. The Candela or the Habano that I have is on the money. So it's a lot more of a sweeter cooking spice, but it still is going to have the body of an Habano and the strength of an Habano. But it just doesn't have as much of that pepper profile that they typically do. And then the box press, some people really just enjoy box press. I don't know why. Not that they're bad, don't get me wrong, but some people are just really picky towards only box press, which is
it's like their thing.
which is their prerogative. I mean, I remember hearing one time that the flavor profile can change for a couple different reasons, but one with it being more square in your mouth. There's air that's able to go through the sides of your mouth, so it's able to cool the tobacco even more. And so it opens up a lot of that flavor that's also in the tobacco. And then mine's actually, the 2 are actually different. So like the box press, we actually removed one of the pieces of tobacco that's in the normal Habano. And so now it fits a lot better in the mold. So it is a little bit of a different flavor change, but not by a whole lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the San Andreas Maduro is Mexican San Andreas wrapper with Nicaraguan filler and binder. And that one is, again, it's a Maduro, so it's going to have some strength and some body to it, but you're going to get a lot more of the coffee espresso notes, a lot more of the like dark chocolatey notes, and not as much of the pepper. And the reason I really did a lot of that with my cigars is because if you bought a 5-pack from me and say they're just sitting in your humidor or whatever you have them in, and you just want to have a cigar, you don't want to think about it, you just want to go outside, cut it, light it. I wanted it to be, you could pick any one of them and you're going to sit out there and enjoy that smoke. And not be like, oh shit, did I grab the Maduro? Like, did I eat first? Like, this is gonna give me like way too much of a head high. Like, you know what I mean? And so, that's kind of the point, where if someone is more new into the cigar game, essentially, they can essentially be safe with any of the blends that we have, but they will still offer that flavor profile of that typical wrapper, if that makes sense.
No, I knew nothing about cigars except for I like them every now and then. And I'm like, that makes so much more sense the way you're explaining it and stuff of how that all works out. And that was a really good breakdown, which also shows that you are doing the research and you truly know what product you're pushing out to people, which obviously is gonna sell. Like, that's great. So I'm glad to hear about all those, and I'm glad you know what you're talking about.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah,
Um,
they what's it called? Because I started smoking when I was 18, and I'll never forget. I did a construction job when I was, I think, yeah, when I was 18, or not a construction job. I worked at 84 Lumber, so a lumber yard,
yeah.
and a buddy of mine that I worked with, we were working on the forklifts together, like getting ready for like a to load up like a flatbed for a delivery. And I was sitting there smoking a cigar. I think it was like some kind of Perdomo. I think it was like their Perdomo like double wrap Maduro or something like that. Just super strong, like very strong, very full bodied. But again, like depending, like if you drink coffee, coffee is a very good way of pairing what you would typically like in a cigar.
I look at it kind of like coffee because of like how they roast it,
Yeah.
what type of bean they're using or whatever. If it's Arabica or whatever the other one is. As you were explaining it though, I'm like, it's kind of like coffee. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Oh yeah. So so sitting there, and I of course I drink like espresso, shots black, all the time. I drink black coffee all the time, and so that's my favorite palette. It's not that I don't enjoy, say, something on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, like my Candela. I love it, and but for that particular instance, I was sitting there smoking that and everything, and a buddy comes up and he's like, "Hey, do you have another cigar? Like, I can smell it. It smells really good. Like, I'd love to share one with you." And I was like, I got one more of these, and I have a Rocky Patel, which is another really big cigar company. They used to make, I don't know if they still do, but they used to make um, Super Ligero. So they packed it full of Ligero, but of other things too, but like
Yeah.
primarily Ligero. So that thing was strong.
Yeah.
Like, dude, when I tell you, like, I had them in Corona sizes too, so they were like what, like 6 inches, a little over 6 inches, and what's it called? And so I was like, you can have one or the other. I was like, I prefer if you have the Perdomo because I actually really like the triple Ligero or the super Ligero. And so of course he grabs the super Ligero, and I was like, whatever, dude. And so cut it for him, and he lit it himself, whatever. And we're sitting there driving around, and I'm not even thinking about it. I'm sitting there, I'm doing the forklift, like whatever, and I look over at him, and he just looks like he's like stuck. And when I tell you, dude, he was only like not even halfway through that cigar, and looked over at him. I was like, "Hey, dude, you all right?" And he's like, I don't feel that great. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I bet. And he like went to go take a step off the forklift and just threw up. And he was just, dude, he was yakking for a couple minutes.
Damn.
I mean, he was really tore up from that. And I was like, dude, I was like, that's not like, what the hell are you doing? I was like, it's not that bad. And he was like, oh, dude, he's like, after the first time I inhaled it, he was like, I just felt like shit. And I was like, wait, hold on.
Why'd you inhale it?
I was like, so we're inhaling it. And
Oh
he was like, yeah, I've been ghost inhaling it. And I was like, hey, dude, I was like, this isn't a cigarette. Like, I was like, there is so much nicotine in that cigar.
It's like I think one cigar, even like a black and mild, is like it's equal to 20 cigarettes.
I,
That's what I hear. So like I can't imagine.
I-
Oh my god.
and so he was sitting there almost ghost inhaling the whole, like halfway through the cigar. And because I was like, damn, I was like, I'm like sitting there thinking to myself, like, damn, dude, am I a psycho? Like, how am I been smoking that? And he's just green. And but no, he was inhaling it the whole time.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. So no, it's really interesting, and like and especially when I've gone into cigar lounges and stuff. You can always really tell when people, like, and it's not a negative thing when people are new, but you want to make sure you're going into a cigar lounge that is like they know what they're talking about. I guess is a good way, because if you're new, you ignorance isn't bliss when you walk in there, because just because something is light shade doesn't mean it won't be strong. And that's where you're a tobacconist, or like if you go to an event and like say you come to come to Silent Hero Cigar event, um, and I've had to do it before, where you have to kind of advise people on what to steer clear from and where they're good and whatever, and make good recommendations kind of based off of that individual. And I think where a lot of people kind of go wrong is when they're new and they go into a cigar lounge. They Either they don't ask questions, or they ask questions and the tobacconist is not really worth a damn, and they just kind of want to sell them like maybe whatever's not moving, or maybe trying to make a pretty penny off of
Yeah,
them,
because they're a salesman at the end of the day. Yeah.
and they're not really trying to advise because they love what they're doing, I guess is a good way of putting that. And then the only person that suffers is the new person, because they're excited, they're pumped, and and you cut the cigar and you light it, and you're halfway through it and you're like, holy shit, this is my first cigar. And like in that example, it's it's super Ligero, and the guy said I'd be fine. It's like, no, dude, like get him something light, like,
Yeah.
you know, and so no, it's really interesting. And I don't want to forget your question about why people don't like the Candela. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so the Candela, or the Calero, or double Calero, whatever, it all means the same thing. Essentially, what people don't like about it is it's like you're like smoking grass. Like it's very hay and alfalfa forward. And it can be really bitter and really tart. Like it'll really dry your mouth out, like I don't know if you're into wine, but like a really dark red wine,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
kind of that dryness. And obviously people don't enjoy that, especially like the alfalfa and the grass and hay. When I was doing, digging around and doing my own research, that was actually the biggest issue that people didn't enjoy. And people that are diehard Candela smokers actually enjoy that flavor.
Oh, okay. So
So
it's kind of like people that like dry wine. It's like
yeah,
they either love dry wine or people don't want to go near it, especially new people, because you're like,
right. And so as a blending perspective, you kind of have to, I don't know, you have to kind of pick a direction, or you have to figure out a way to get creative, is to give it best of the both worlds. And I've only seen like a couple that have actually gotten it pretty tame, like in the middle, to where it's not one way or the other. Not that they're not good cigars. I enjoy Candelas either which way. Um,
yeah.
it kind of depends on the who rolled it, like what factory it came from. I think for me, um, but the biggest thing is you want to try to understand how to get it in the middle, because those actually sell. And what you were you gonna say something? Sorry.
No, I gotta, there's something going on. I gotta jump out real quick. We'll jump right back into it. I just want to hear that because,
Oh, you're fine. You want to go ahead?
yeah, like give me 1 second,
Oh
okay?
yeah, you're good, man.
Hey guys, quick break for the show. Let's talk about emergencies. You never know when life's going to throw you a curveball, and then that's where this new brand called Jump Medic comes in. Whether you're hiking on the ground, riding around a Humvee, first aid kits they're selling are like a tank in a bag. They're rugged, organized, ready when you need them. I've got one myself, and let me tell you, the peace of mind fits perfectly in the trunk of your car. Head on over to jumpmedic.com. The discount code will be coming out soon. Stay safe out there. Let's get back to it.
Essentially, what companies, or like not companies, but what I've been trying to do, is really show people that, I guess a fun fact for you is, Candelas actually were a status symbol and one of the most popular cigars in the United States back in like 1940, like, and in the 40s and like 50s. And then I think really the craze of brown leaf tobacco coming out of Cuba and all kinds of stuff, that kind of became the new,
The big trend or whatever.
the trend, and then kind of that status symbol. And um, I think now, with everything, Candelas are trying to, people don't really release them anymore. They kind of do them as like a limited run because, they don't really sell because, people already understand that, candelas are a little bit tricky as far as like storage and light. And not only that, but flavor, and the customer base is pretty limited. And so for me, what I ended up trying to do was I took all of that on that Google knowledge essentially, um, and was
That's
like,
right. It's those midnight runs of everyone's asleep in the house, but you're just chat GPTing and scrolling and trying to figure out all this stuff, why it is the way it is and all that. It's so fun to dive down that because then you go, I think I can solve this problem. Like,
yeah. And I remember my grandfather actually, ironically, he didn't have his history degree or anything, but he was a very big history guy.
mhm.
And I remember him saying to me, like, if you want to solve the problem, start at the beginning. And so that's what I did. And so I ended up trying to understand and how to put these puzzle pieces together to get it to have a cigar that tasted good, but then you also have to get it to burn right. And then you also have to get it to draw right. So you're just, everything is against you. And then, with the candelas that we sell, or the candela that I sell, um, is a very good middle ground. So there is a very, very light, sweet grass flavor behind it, but it's very predominant with floral and green tea notes and a little bit of white pepper and like tangerine. So it is very like it would probably pair really well. I mean, granted, I'm not that big of a beer drinker, don't get me wrong, but I would imagine it would pair really well with some kind of, like a very summer beer, like a Coors
So say
Banquet
blue,
or
blue moon or something,
Blue
even like,
Moon. Yeah, that'd be really good. Something like that where it's a really light cigar with a light-ish beer, maybe.
yeah.
um,
Do you recommend pairing those type, like pairing a cigar with like a glass of whiskey or a beer or something like that? Or,
yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of tricky because like cigars and whiskey and bourbon and all that kind of stuff kind of go hand in hand. I personally do not drink like that. Again, just kind of my upbringing and everything. It's a little bit of a negative thing for me when I do it. I can, not for other people. Other people do
yeah,
their
yeah.
thing. But you know what I mean? Like, do your thing. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, I get it.
And so for me, and plus, I've always really just enjoyed coffee a lot more.
Coffee seems like the more you talk about it, I'm like, it would be great to go with a nice black coffee. Like,
Yeah, it's so I've paired them all with coffee. Besides the Candela. The Candela was the only one I didn't do with coffee, and I did that one with actually a gin and tonic with Hendrick's gin,
oh,
and
nice.
that the herbal notes of obviously gin, and then pairing that with the floral herbal notes of green tea that's in the Candela, it just it pairs it beautifully. And then I've had some people send me pictures of them smoking the Candela, and they have that Arizona green tea.
Oh, yeah,
That
yeah.
has been I, I have seen so many people doing that, and they love it. It's just kind of that, you got to try this. And then they're just constantly experimenting with different things. Like I had one dude that sent me a picture of him smoking one of those with Dr. Pepper. And
Oh, wow.
he was like, it's an interesting pairing, but he's like, the cigar is really good. And I don't know if Dr. Pepper would go with that there, brother. But no, like to answer your question, with like bourbons and stuff like that, I think that all of them besides really the Candela would go really good with any type of, especially like I think the Maduro, like if you went with like a Scotch, I think that would be probably right up its alley. Um, typically, I would, I would imagine, because the biggest thing with pairings is you don't want to have one pairing that overrides the other.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like if you're drinking Scotch with my Connecticut, your Scotch is probably going to completely mute that
Overlay
cigar.
the Connecticut. Yeah.
And so that would be the main thing that I would strongly say is if you're going to um, pair it with cigars and bourbon or whiskey or whatever, is try to keep in mind of that flavor profile of the cigar and your pairing, just because you kind of want it to almost complement each other in a way. It doesn't have to be right on the money, but like it has to be somewhat close, or you're going to have obviously a little bit of a flavor change, or completely run the risk of kind of washing one or the other out, you know.
Yeah. Bryce, you kind of gave a master class just now. Like, because I didn't know nothing, and now I'm like, damn, this is a rabbit hole that I need to dive down. Um, dude, it kind of went perfect here because I'm looking at our timeline. It was your first half was how it all started, and the next part was literally showing what a craft you're making and like how you're doing it all, and that is awesome because I hope I can get this to people of I I know dozens of people like that don't they know cigars or they think they're cool, but they really don't. Oh, me too. Like I didn't know nothing about that, and a lot of people don't. So when you explain it, it not only makes you more intrigued about it, but it makes you like, oh, they really are taking care. Like the good companies are taking care of people, like actually working on a um, it's a pleasure, it's like it's
Yeah.
a indulgence, and it's great. So thank you for that, because that truly was for me. If nobody else gets shit out of that, that was awesome for me to really like understand it all. So
No,
thanks for that.
absolutely, man. And again, like, this is a hobby that, I really enjoyed, and then, kind of turned it into a business, or, well, I did turn it into a business, but, again, like, it's always going to be fun to me, you know what I mean? And so, I mean, that's why I do it. I love the, complexities of cigars, and, how one Connecticut can look this way, but the other one that's sitting right next to it could be completely different. I've always just really enjoyed that aspect. And, for me personally, my wife, I'm telling you, dude, she's going to throw something heavy at me one of these days if I keep nerding out on her and just start, rapid firing things to her. I'm telling you, she's going to knock me out with something heavy. But no, absolutely, man. I mean, it's really fun, and like I said, no, I mean, I enjoy it a ton, so that's cool.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I can tell, and I loved having you on here, man. This was a great time for me. Thank you so much for sharing your experience as well as your business. We're gonna have, if you want, plug where we can find you at, if you want, or what links we should go to.
Yeah, so you can find us at Silent Hero Cigar on any social media platform. On Instagram, especially, we have that blue verified check mark. So yeah, obviously people know that's us. Um, and then, as far as website is concerned, again, it's on silentheroescigar.com. And I always encourage people too, you go on the website, um, and go to the Find Us page. That's where it'll have all of our online retailers. That's where it'll have all of our brick and mortars that are listed out by state. And they actually have their own hyperlinks on them as well. That way people can find whatever store they're looking for. And if we're in your state and that brick and mortar is close by, go in there and pick up some. If you're interested in doing that, that I think people, when I started this business, I think people had the idea that they could only buy it from my website, and that was the only way it would benefit, our mission. Anytime you see a Silent Hero cigar sitting on a shelf, or, for sale, or whatever it may be, um, buy it. Buy that off of, the brick and mortar or whatever like that. Because they ultimately, are supporting us. Every cigar sale in person or online, is support either which way towards, our cause and, our company. And so definitely don't hesitate. There's a other, in that Find Us page, there's actually other online retailers that currently sell our cigars, and most of them are actually veteran owned. So if you want to support two veteran owned companies at one time, I there it is.
Yeah.
So the choice is really, the choice is really out there. As time progresses, I think people will really see. I'm a really big proponent on giving people options and giving people what they want, and not just having it done my way or the company's way, and that's it. Really having the choice for the customer to pick and choose, and um, and again, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole because I know coming up on time. But the thing that we did that I really wanted to do, and I was glad that I was able to do it, was if you walk into a cigar lounge or you go online and you find like sample packs for a company, you'll get like one of each or something like that, right? And I figured out a way how to actually code it into the website to where you can do a build your own. So say, you don't like Candelas, now you don't have to be stuck with it. Now you can actually replace that and put something else there in exchange that that you would actually be more inclined to trying, or maybe you're coming back for a second time and you didn't like a certain blend, so now you want to remove it and add one that you did like. So, um, again, given as many options as I can, and no, I mean that's really it. Um, yeah,
That's plenty. That
yeah,
was great. No, I guys, check him out. Bryce, thank you for coming on. I'm gonna get there. My guests will get there. Thank you, Bryce, for coming on here today.
absolutely. Thank you for having me, man. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for watching, and we'll see you next time.